The sun was slowly sinking behind the hills of Hopewell County, Virginia, casting a warm golden glow over the endless fields of corn and tobacco. The air smelled of damp earth, and the cicadas had begun their evening chorus. In the middle of this serene countryside, a sleek, obsidian-colored luxury sedan carved its way along the narrow, winding roads. Inside the car sat Ethan Caldwell, a multi-millionaire businessman known for his relentless work ethic and ruthless decision-making. His sharp, angular jaw was clenched as he held his phone to his ear, giving curt, impatient instructions to his assistant. His life was a whirlwind of boardroom deals, mergers, and power plays, and even now, as the evening crept in, he was working. The people who worked for him knew better than to question his demands. Time was money, and Ethan didn't believe in wasting either. "Tell the Tokyo team they have until Friday." Ethan barked into the phone. "No extensions. If they can't meet the deadline, we'll find someone who can." He barely noticed the flashing light on his dashboard until the car gave a violent jerk. There was a loud, grinding sound, followed by a terrible silence as the engine sputtered its last breath. Ethan slammed his hand against the steering wheel in frustration. The car coasted to a stop at the edge of an overgrown field, leaving him stranded in the middle of nowhere. He checked his phone. No signal. Not even a single bar. With a muttered curse, Ethan opened the door and stepped out. The humid air wrapped around him immediately, thick and heavy. His Italian leather shoes sank slightly into the soft mud by the roadside. He stared at the dead vehicle, as if willing it to come back to life. It was useless. He was completely cut off, with no sign of help for miles. In the distance, a faint light flickered through the trees. Squinting, Ethan spotted what looked like a farmhouse. It was the only sign of life, and he had no choice but to head toward it. Sighing, he straightened his custom-tailored suit jacket and began walking. The gravel crunched under his feet, and the scent of wildflowers mixed with the faint aroma of manure drifted on the breeze. Despite his irritation, as he drew closer to the house, he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity, as though something was pulling him toward it. The heart of the farm. Inside the farmhouse, Grace Turner had just finished her evening chores. She wiped the sweat from her brow with the back of her hand and set a basket of freshly gathered eggs on the worn wooden table. The house was old, with creaky floors and faded wallpaper that had peeled away in places, but it was hers. After her parents passed away, she'd been left to tend to the land by herself. It was hard work, often lonely, but she found a sense of purpose in it. The farmhouse had seen better days. The roof leaked in 2 places, and the front porch sagged dangerously to one side. It had a kind of charm, a quiet dignity that Grace loved. It was a sanctuary from the world beyond, a world she had no interest in anymore. She'd seen enough of greed, betrayal, and heartbreak to last her a lifetime. The sharp knock at the door startled her. She paused, setting aside the cloth she was using to clean the counter. Few people ever came this far out. Grabbing a towel to wipe her hands, Grace made her way to the door. When she opened it, she found herself face to face with a man who looked completely out of place. He was tall, impeccably dressed, his dark hair neatly styled. His tailored suit seemed almost absurd against the rustic backdrop of the old house and the rolling farmland behind it. "I'm sorry to bother you," the man said, his voice deep and smooth, though tinged with frustration. "My car broke down up the road, and I have no cell service. May I use your phone?" Grace hesitated. She wasn't one to trust strangers easily, especially men who looked like they belonged in glossy magazines rather than country roads. There was something about his tone, the way he carried himself, that made her wary. Still, her sense of decency won out. She nodded silently and stepped back to let him in. Worlds collide. Ethan stepped inside and found himself in a small but cozy living room. The furniture was mismatched but clean. Handmade quilts were folded neatly over the back of the couch. A fire crackled in the stone hearth, giving the room a warm glow. His eyes wandered over the walls, where dozens of framed photographs hung in uneven rows. The pictures told a story. A young girl playing beneath a giant oak tree. A family gathered around a dinner table, laughter frozen in time. Later, a woman in a wheelchair, smiling bravely despite the obvious hardships written on her face. For reasons he couldn't explain, Ethan felt something stir inside him. The images reminded him of something long buried, of a childhood he had fought hard to forget. A life before the money, before the power, before he became Ethan Caldwell, the man who never lost. Before he could ask about the photographs, Grace returned with a glass of water. She handed it to him without a word. He accepted it, his gaze still drifting toward the photographs on the wall. The stories they told fascinated him. Stories of resilience, struggle, and quiet triumph. Their conversation was strained at first. Ethan tried to make small talk, asking about the farm, the weather, the nearest mechanic. Grace answered politely but guardedly. She had dealt with men like him before, men who believed money could fix everything, men who had no understanding of what it meant to live with loss and hard work as daily companions. But as the evening wore on, something shifted, breaking down walls. The storm rolled in quickly. Thunder rumbled across the hills, and rain pelted the windows in heavy sheets. The old phone lines were down, leaving Ethan with no way to call for help. He was stuck there for the night. Grace offered him a spare room. At first, he refused, but as the storm worsened, he relented. That night, they sat in front of the fireplace, the storm outside a distant echo. Their conversation turned deeper. Ethan, to his surprise, found himself talking about things he had long kept hidden. The loneliness of his life, the emptiness behind his success, the friendships he had sacrificed for deals and profits. Grace listened without judgment. She was surprised by what she heard. Underneath his carefully crafted exterior was a man who was lost, who was searching for something he couldn't name. And despite everything, she found herself wanting to understand him. As they talked, they laughed once or twice. There were moments of silence that felt oddly comfortable. Something was changing between them, something neither of them fully understood. Shadows from the past. Just as they were beginning to find a fragile connection, the door burst open. A man staggered in, Daniel Reed, Grace's ex-husband. His face was red, his eyes wild from drink. He hadn't been around for years, but every so often he showed up, full of rage and regret, demanding money or trying to control Grace's life. Tonight, he saw Ethan sitting there and flew into a fury. Accusations flew. Daniel accused Grace of betraying him, of replacing him. His anger was a dangerous, boiling thing. Ethan, who had always believed money solved problems, realized he couldn't buy his way out of this. He stood his ground, defending Grace. It was the first time in years he had fought for something, or someone, without calculating the profit. The confrontation escalated. Daniel grew violent. Ethan fought back, but Grace was the one who ended it. She stood between them, speaking to Daniel in a voice full of old memories and hard truths. She reminded him of the man he used to be. For a moment, Daniel faltered. The fight drained out of him. He left, but not before promising he'd be back. Grace was shaken. Ethan was furious. He didn't understand why she let Daniel leave, why she wouldn't press charges. But Grace explained quietly that life wasn't always about winning or losing. Some battles couldn't be fought with fists or lawyers. It was a lesson Ethan had never learned, and it hit him harder than he expected. New beginnings. The next morning, the storm had passed. Ethan's car was towed to a nearby shop. He could leave. But before he did, he asked Grace for something he hadn't asked anyone for in years: help. He didn't know what he was asking for. Maybe guidance, maybe friendship, maybe something more. But he knew he couldn't go back to his life unchanged. Grace, too, felt something shift inside her. For so long, she had lived behind walls she'd built to protect herself. But Ethan had shown her that people, even those from a world she despised, could understand her pain, that there was still good in the world. They parted ways with a promise to see each other again. The road ahead. Ethan returned to his life in the city, but he wasn't the same. He made changes, small ones at first. He started to listen more, to value people over profit, relationships over deals. He reached out to old friends, tried to mend broken bridges. Slowly, He rebuilt his life on different foundations. Grace, too, began to open her world again. She reconnected with old friends. She invited neighbors over for dinner. She started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't meant to live her life entirely alone. Their paths crossed again and again. They built something neither had expected. It wasn't just romance. It was understanding. It was hope. Two people from different worlds, carrying the same burdens, sharing the same hopes, and daring to believe in something better. And maybe, just maybe, they would find it something together. The end.